I feel completely vindicated because when I read Seven Cars, I too imagined the works moving into the 20th century, and I'm always sort of guilty of projecting my scholars what I want from them. So the one, yeah, I said as I told you before, I'm super excited because I am a 19th century historian and nothing else. So I was delighted with this report thing. But since you opened the door and I missed Catherine's lunchtime talk, ironically because I was at the Black Women's Arts event, that we sort of had a little bit of an overlap. One of the things that I did, and it gets to something that you just said, one of the most striking things about Southern Horror is that I went back to it in preparation for this event. It gets me every single time, is the way that you really show how, even though Rebecca Felton and Ida B. Wells are arguing some ideologically, they're from very different subject positions, they're very different ideological places and genders, but they were also partaking in these nationally shared discourses about womanhood, sexuality, violence, and the role of political leadership in shaping all of those things. And, you know, the book weaves a lot together, and maybe this is an unfair question because it's very presentist, and it was thinking about the 20th century. We have a lot of scholarship and a lot of activist conversation about intersectionality, but as a political observer, and less as an historian, sometimes I wonder whether our discourses about gender and sexuality have become less shared and more atomized along lines of race and class. And like I think about what you say about the way, even though we can critique like the National Council of Negro Women for some of their the respectability politics that they looked at poor Black women. I wonder what you're sort of reflecting on, particularly sort of what the sharedness of our discourses are and are not across race and class, say, in the century since the era that you wrote about.
That's a good question.
Because I feel like we're talking about it more, but I'm not sure. I think the discourse seems less shared.
Right. I mean, I guess what I would say is, you know, as the historian in me is always like context matters. And so, you know, what people are able and willing to talk about actually, like what we're able to talk about and engaging in the post-Anita Hill, you know, that Anita Hill moment shifted everything, right? And then we can talk about the Emmett Till case shifting everything, right, for a generation of young people and how they were thinking about racial violence, right? It mattered that he was a boy. It mattered that he had been falsely accused of sexual, you know, assault to some like little small degree, right? So that I think, you know, what we have to, like, I think there is a common discourse, but I think that there are feminist politics, right? And I say feminist politics in the sense that I don't see a singular notion of feminism, that like we all, whether it's you, as you show, there are Black feminists who are on the side of racial, social justice, right? And there are Black feminists who are on the side of what we might think about as traditional discourse of like white feminist politics, right? And I would argue that like we can pull out these tropes at any given moment. Like I can say, okay, look, Rebecca Latimer Felton was this racist white supremacist who called for lynching, right? And that Ida B. Wells was this, you know, radical woman who really called for against lynching. Like, I could just put that up on the screen and y'all would all be like, that's right, right? But the historian in me is like, but why in this particular moment, why in 1890 are we able to hear Wells as an anti-lynching activist? And why in 1890 is Felton held up as this woman who is advocating for lynching, right? That they serve a political purpose at a political moment in time. But if as a historian, a part of me is like, well, I have to go in and actually figure out, you know, why is it that Felton said this? And the thing that I found was, she's complicated. We're all very complicated, right? That ultimately, yes, she called for lynching 1,000 Black men a day if necessary to protect the, you know, virtue of white womanhood. But in fact, when she initially made that speech, she was calling white men to task. And she would say, you know, lynching reveals that like our legal system has failed, our political system has failed, the courts have failed, right, to enact adequate rape laws. And, you know, and these white men are lynching, and this is horrible. This is not how this system should work. And if it works this way, actually poor women, she realized, were going to be excluded from protection. But she basically makes a political calculation at some point where she realized that if she's going to get anything on this question of sexual assault and sexual violence, that she has to capitulate to the discourse of white supremacy. And I think that she's not unique in that way, that in our current moment, Susan Brommiller was making calculations. It wasn't just about this is real rape, but if we sort of anchor down in the realities of the 1970s, we can better understand, that's the historian to me, we can better understand why she made that choice and why she read that case that way in that particular moment. She wouldn't do that, and I don't think she'd do it in 1993 after Anita Hill here, Clarence Thomas hearings, because we know that these narratives matter, that these tropes actually do political work, and there's a reason that we hang on to them, and there's a reason that they have currency. But they shift, right? So how they work in 1970 is very different from how they're working in 1870.
I love that you sort of talked about the anchor and what work that did in the 1970s. Because one of the other questions I had about both the Southern Harm work, but also some elements of your current work, particularly looking at how we responded during the Civil War, I wondered what your perspective was on thinking about sort of national histories of rape culture, versus histories of anti-rape activism. And I think that we're trying, your work certainly combines many elements of those, and what we're trying to do in the symposium is akin to the scholarly study of all of the above. But, and you said it, I can't remember if this is something that you sent us or something I read somewhere else, about avoiding works that would just become a chronicle of sort of who had experienced what form of sexual violence. But I'm wondering whether, I guess there's a difference in the history of the trauma itself and its presence in our society and in the history of the activism.
So, it's another big question.
That's my job.
But I think, when I think about, I don't know if this, but when I thought about whether I'm moving forward or moving backwards from Southern horrors, right? Like when I started Southern horrors, I was surprised that I was in the 1990s. Like I had done stuff on civil rights, and I was teaching classes on civil rights and women's lib, and trying to look at the ways in which Black and white women came together around certain issues. And I moved back because I thought I can't really understand what's happening in the 70s and the 60s unless I know what was before. And the thing that I realized when I was working on Southern horrors, I really wanted to understand not just Black women's campaigns in the 1890s for like independence of ourselves and politics of respectability. Like I really wanted to understand that in a given context, but it was clear to me that was rooted in slavery. That the generation of Black women had experienced under slavery informed the Black women's clothing movement of the 1880s and 1890s, right? And also had this inkling, like, why are white women, the kind of literature that was pushing back against the rape and lynching was that white women were just terrible about that. And they were like, there's this hysteria among white people. And we knew that white men were mobilizing the Black rapist image for political and economic power to maintain, and sexual power, right? But I was like, well, what's going on with these white women? Like, why are they like scared to walk down the street? What's happening? And particularly because the literature on the Civil War had argued that Black men weren't raping white women in the Civil War. So that it didn't seem like a natural trajectory. And I thought, well, maybe if I go back to the Civil War, I can figure out why, is this post-war trauma? It's like basically what I'm just like, maybe this is PTSD. And then I was like, well, yeah, and all of them were afraid they were going to be raped. Like during the Civil War, if the South is occupied, the threat is not Black men. It is an occupying force that is walking around with guns, right, every day, and that see Southern white women particularly as rebels, right? And who are keeping the war going, right? So for me, it's always been about kind of figuring out what the stakes are and what does an anti-rape movement look like in the context of the Civil War. It's going to look very different from what it looks like in the post-war period, right? Because Black women are able to testify. The labor codes during the Civil War define rape as a war crime during the Civil War without regard to race. And what that meant for Black women, it meant that they could charge anybody, white, black, green, purple, yellow, with rape if they brought suit or if they accused somebody, right? And so in that context, it was very clear to me that an anti-rape movement or activism was about going through the court-martial system by using the law. Post-war period, that's not an option, right? So Black club women are going to have to organize very differently around these issues, right? And the same with white women, it's going to shift. There's no, and we can see that in our current day, that there's no magic bullet. I don't know who said it. I think it was you, Mary, that said restorative justice is not the single solution. Was that you? Okay. And that's right. It's like, yeah, it might work on a college campus, in a particular college campus at a particular moment, but it might not work on another college campus at a particular historical moment. And so that we have to, for me, as a historian, I'm always looking for places where women were doing this work. What were they arguing? What was at stake for them? Because oftentimes the stakes change, and what sexual justice looks like for enslaved women is very different from what it looks like for college students on college campuses today. Right?
I'm glad you brought up Mary's one, because that's one of the things that I've been thinking about. I'm a slavery historian all day, all the time, and one of the things I talk about is constantly is sort of how normative is rape at what moments. And no one presumes ever that slavery is a low-rape culture for Black women, but we do sometimes presume, even despite what was said about the Civil War, that wars are a certain kind of high-rape context. Statistically, sometimes they are, and then we also have comprehensive disbelief when we find a high-rape context in some context that we thought it didn't exist in. And that was one of the questions that, particularly because you are working on a war context now. And I think this is from Southern Horrors, where you talk about the centrality of sexual violence and threat deed of memory, for how women made sense of their lives. And one of the things that I think we all end up struggling with, mostly arguing with people, about how to parse that centrality. That they want to think, okay, it was a war, therefore I believe you that was central to, as you said, of course with the conversation and these women, that was one of their fundamental fears. And I think we do it in some more modern studies, trying to find the context where centrality, and I wonder sort of how you parse that, whether centrality is normative across lots of contexts.
I mean, with the war, of course, coming of age, after, Bosnia, Rwanda, all of those things, it's not surprising that I would think, oh, well, they must have raped some people during the Civil War, right? But I also couldn't just kind of take that as a given, right? And most historians, I had to find some evidence, right? Figure out, well, how central is it to women's wartime experience? How central was the threat of sexual violence? Where can I find that in the sources? And not just where I've talked about the court martials. One of the things that I realized is most women don't report. Right? So that most historians have said, who agreed it's a low rate, well, we don't have that many court martial records, right? And again, it's how do you go to the police and tell the police that you've been raped by another police officer, right? That they're having to report other soldiers and officers, right? And those officers are responsible for holding these trials, right? And there's nothing romantic or, when you read these court-martial trials, they're pretty brutal. The accused soldier gets to question you and all of this sort of crazy stuff. So for me, it was about kind of trying to figure out by reading diaries, by reading newspapers, by reading military reports, and actually tracking the language of war, which in itself is about, like, even if we think about the language of occupation or pillage and plunder, there was a way in which the language of warfare was masking the kind of concrete realities of women's lived experiences, right? And even if I just said, I'm going to stick with the rhetoric up here, there was no way that I could imagine that women weren't afraid that they were going to be raped, whether they were raped or not. Because there was the language of beauty and booty, that everybody understood that, like, that the rewards of war is access to the women of the men that you conquered, right? And that everybody understood that language, and everybody operated on those terms, right? That even when you had officers issuing orders, do not pillage and plunder, do not go in, like that they were doing it, that people understood the stakes. And so for me, what I realized that it was actually central to how women experience the war, that the threat of sexual violence, whether real or imagined, shaped whether they decided to stay, whether they decided to flee, whether they decided to try to hold on to some of their slave women, right? Because a lot of white women used enslaved women as a buffer, right? That they knew if soldiers came, if there were enslaved women there, they would be the first line of target, right? And you will have white women saying, I threw her out, I threw my maid out, my maid was hiding, I threw her out, and the girls, we locked up on the third floor. So that you can see that people understand that sexual violence is a part of warfare. And so then, for me, it becomes hard to imagine that the post-war period, that what women are imagining in terms of their lives when I get to Felton, that, like, basically she was like, you know, they fucked us over at the war, right? I mean, she literally says that white men did not protect us, and so all bets are off. We want political, economic, and legal power. We want to change the rape laws. And so it's central, right? It's central to their post-war experience, and it's central to Black women's post-war experience. You can't come out of slavery when it's a system, whether it's, you know, we can talk about individual corrupt white men, but it is a system that is fundamentally based on the sexual exploitation of Black women. Right? And I would argue we can't understand sexual harassment in the workplace if we don't go back to slavery. Right? That if we think about Black women as the kind of first women to be working, right? Working, and whether we think about it as productive labor or reproductive labor, that, like, sexual harassment and sexual exploitation was fundamental to how the system of slavery worked. Right? And so that when you have Black women going into the workplace in the post-war period, or even during the Civil War with my laundresses, what they understand is that white men expect sex as a part of the labor that they're supposed to perform. Right? So if white men expect that of Black women in the workplace, what happens when white women move into the workplace? It means that they're going to be subject to this long history of sexual harassment and sexual exploitation, because that is the labor that is expected of women. Right? Regardless of whether you're Black, and it's a question of making men feel comfortable, but men understand that the work that women do is sexual, whether they pay for it or not. Right?
Yeah, you gave me permission to go from these stories. And I have one more. President's President, because I do want, like, thinking about how we periodize. I don't know if Ruben is here. We have a history student in the history department who works on history of sexuality between the U.S. and the Caribbean. He's very interested in sort of how you put time markers on post-slavery and, like, how you think about that. Because, you know, he talks about the post-slavery Americas, and is that different? Like, is it never ending? But I did actually want to make sure we have proper time for questions from the audience. One of the questions that I did want your reflection on is that one of the things, you know, in some ways I'm shocked that all of us, both as scholars and as a nation, need a reminder that came from your first work, that Ida Bell's drew no distinction between white men who murdered Black men as an act of white supremacist terror and white men who raped Black women for the same reason. We are currently, though, sitting in more than a decade decade-long movement of rallying cry Black Lives Matter, with one of being with sort of, both popular and intellectual touchstone. All right, but the masculinized national Black victim that, I think, so you referenced the work of Evelyn Higginbotham, Deborah White, sort of leading you to your robust critique of that, but that masculinized national Black victim, it is enduring. And I wonder, and even as we have more data on precisely how sort of police violence, state violence, rape, all of these things, are, we have the data on their relationship to Black women, but that nationalized masculine victim, he won't die.
Yeah, and the thing that I argue in Southern Horrors is that image does work. And it does not just work, but it masks a whole host of other things, right? So that whether it's going back to the 70s and the anti-rape movements and the debates, people arguing over like, well, it's the Black man, the real rapist versus, like, that's the work of that image. The Black Beast is about distorting the reality of rape and sexual violence, right? That, and if white women can focus on Black men as the assailants of rape, then yeah, they might get a little bit of justice. But it is about protecting white patriarchal, white supremacist power, right? So that, again, if we're focused on Black male victims of police brutality, it's doing a particular kind of work. It wants us to look away from Black women as victims of sexual and racial police violence, right? It makes us look away from white people who are victims of police brutality, right? That we can there's this idea that we can only focus on one thing at a time, and that's what people want. If you're focusing on one thing, right, and it serves to distort everything else and to mask everything else, right? And I always tell my students, this ain't a zero-sum game, right? To acknowledge that Black men are the victims of police brutality, and to acknowledge that Black women are, and that some poor white people are, homeless white people, gay, that doesn't mean that we're not interested in Black men as the victims. Yes, they're disproportionately in some cases, but it ain't a zero-sum game, and that there's a reason people want you to focus on that, right?
Well, it sounds, I have made versions of that argument to students, and it sounds almost sort of conspiratorial, like, I was like, there's no one in a room doing that, but that's,
And that Black people, it's like Felton. She knew that, like, if she could both use the sort of wedge of white supremacy as a way to get kind of a political platform, that Black people understand that if they use the wedge of, like, Black men have been disproportionately, and it creates an opening, right, so that they can start to have a larger conversation. So, Angela Davis has not been, she will talk about, like, the Black men, but she uses that as an opening to talk about Black women in the carceral state, right? So that people are being strategic, right, in sort of which narratives that they want to wield. And we saw that with Anita Hill Clarence Thomas, and the call from African American women's historians is like we have to have multiple narratives, right? Yes, maybe Clarence Thomas can talk about high-tech lynching, but in this case, in context, it's not working, right? I mean, it worked, but it's working to mask Anita Hill's experience because we don't have enough narratives that Ray and Black her experience, right?
Yeah, I think that just means something. I think we need to teach both. I think that's what's, to get students to understand how sort of political discourse works. My unfair historian's question, unfair fangirl question is, here's the book that I want you to write. Okay. No, there you go. But if we think sort of big picture, because I'm a historian, I'm thrilled that you're in this conversation. But if we think about race, sexual violence in U.S. culture from the colonial era to the 21st century, all right? Is that coherent natural history? Should it be written? Because I think all of us, we as scholars in this symposium, see the perfect logic of why your work must be in these conversations. All right, but I think, many activists today, certainly a lot of our students, would kind of look at even Catherine's work and be like, what's that in the conversation with, these sort of very presentist concerns?
Well, of course, I mean, the only reason I can collect my paycheck at the end of the day is because I think history matters. Right? So that I do think that one can write a long history and a national history in which we understand the intersections of race and sex and the way that sexual violence creates those categories in ways that make it difficult for us to move beyond race as a social construct, right? That in the way that we can say, well, race is really real and that gender is really real, it's based on how we experience those categories, and that sexual violence makes those categories very real, right, in a longer history. Whether you're doing the history of anti-rape activism, whether you're looking at how the rape laws have changed over time, whether you're looking at the history of war, from like the first wars on Native Americans through Vietnam War, right? That you can't get past this question of sexual violence and how it is racialized, right? How it is inflicted by class, how it's inflicted by sexuality, right? And I think that's the one place where I think there's a lot of work. I know you guys asked us at some point, like, think about what work is to be done, right? That, like, this question of, like, for me, even with the Civil War, I'm trying to find those places where I know that these soldiers were raping men, right? And, like, trying to figure out sort of the, that booty and beauty is something that we kind of take for granted as a notion of warfare. But we also know, in the same way that we understand prison culture, that like the way that men exercise power over other men through sexual violence is really important if we're going to try to think about men's experience in relationship to sexual violence. So that I think one could write, I mean, I can't do it. I'd love it if I could do it because I'd just be talented. But it's like this could be imagine like this history as a queer history, right? And what that looks like. And I'm not saying it's just about same-sex racial violence, but like the theoretical understanding of what it means to queer something, right? That I think we're set to write a national history of sexual violence with kind of race and sex, and that those categories are black and white. It is very clear that like we can understand that region is playing a key role, but I think that someone with kind of savvy theoretical skills could write a queer history of that.
No, you brought up region, which was on my list, but it is precisely 2:00, which is the moment at which we are to open this to questions from the audience.
I have a question. I have a historian's question, which is, can you talk a little bit more about reading actions in the documents? I was intrigued by that, and so I haven't read that piece of yours. I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you've done that and what materials you have, what archives you have, and
Thank you. It's a good question, and it's mostly the work that I've been doing with the Celia Project, and that's a collective. There are two people who work in the field of kind of African American literature. There's two people who are legal scholars, who are lawyers, and then there are two of us who are historians. So Hannah Rosen is the other historian. Martha Jones is a historian, but also a legal scholar, and Ariana Rose. And then I won't mention the literature people because they don't get that. Anyway, that's me. That's revealing something about myself. But nonetheless, so for me, my work is my contribution has been about kind of reading, not just against the grain, what the sources say Celia said, but like trying to act on what I think Celia, what we know to be real. So for me, it's been about me believing that she was acting in self-defense. Because she supposedly tells people that she's going to kill him if he comes back and he forces himself on her. And so my sense is like, well, he came back, he forced himself on her, and she killed him. Right? And then the other place is around George. I don't know if people have read the Celia narrative. So, the other place where I've been really struggling and trying to write about her actions and some choices that she made that are rooted in silences, right? So basically, with George is another slave on the plantation, and everybody thinks George killed him or had a part in it. And the argument that the main person who's written about this story, no disrespect, is this white man, and the Glory. And his narrative is that basically she was in a sexual relationship with the black slave on the plantation. Black slave told her, the male slave said, you need to quit the old white man, I'm done with you. And that's like the camel that broke her back. And so she killed him with the help of George so that she could be with George, right? And of course me, someone who works with sexual violence, it's like, yeah, that's probably just the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back in the sense. Not that she was trying to kill him for George, but that she was like, fuck this. These two men, they're like insisting on my like sexual labor, right? And that one thinks that I have some control. And the other historian writes that pretty much thinks that she couldn't kill him by herself. She burns him in the fire, that George had to do. And George runs away. Let me be clear. As soon as it happened, he gone. He's out. She never says that she says George didn't help her, that George didn't have nothing to do with it. And the fact that she doesn't give up George, I decide that if she kills the man, she says, she tells everybody before she kills him, she's gonna kill him, right? So I'm like, well, let's just like take it for granted. Read her actions for what they were. Self-defense, and also the fact that she, he says she doesn't betray George. I'm like, what if we say she didn't get it about George. It wasn't about not betraying George, but about owning her own choices and her own decisions about what she was willing to tolerate. So I'm trying to rewrite the narrative, not one of kind of automatic racial solidarity. I don't know what her relationship to George is. Like, as far as I'm concerned, if he's making that threat, it makes me think, well, maybe she was having coercive or unconsensual sex with him as well. Like that there's a way in which I'm trying to censor her actions without giving it to like traditional tropes of what kind of solidarity.
I was really interested by your idea of this narrative of like sex involved in work exchange from slavery to like when we're talking about conversations about the Me Too movement. And I was wondering if your research into prostitution and actual sex work has like a place in that narrative and where that is.
That's a good question. So first of all, let me say, there's a scholar who was very much involved in our Celia project early on, but she became a dean and provost, so she doesn't do as much, Adrienne Davis. And so she had a great piece on like that history of sexual harassment and slavery. And she's got about two or three pieces, articles that are in long journals, but that are really accessible. I think they're on my, I don't know if you're gonna do that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
It's on the bibliography that I posted. As for my own work on the Civil War and the sex trade, I mean, this is one of those places where, I'm trying to, I just gave a paper last week at Yale on this work that I've been doing, mostly to try to decide if I'm willing to go there with this project, because it requires, it takes me forever to do anything, and like for me to go into the Civil War has like taken me 10 years to kind of figure out the Civil War, just like re-educate myself. And so I know that if I go into this project, it requires me, like, I have my graduate students being like, you can't say prostitute. That's like, it's just, you have to say sex trade, and you have to, and I'm like, there's so much all this other in the chamber that I have to like learn, right? In the same way that like So I don't have an answer. Like what I know is what I know about Louisville, Kentucky, and like these prostitutes there, or women working in the sex trade, or women who were basically, positioned as sex workers when they weren't sex workers. I do think that there is a connection between enslaved women and the idea of prostitution. So when I'm in this project on the Civil War that I'm working on in Louisiana, like, I can't not talk about prostitution and Butler's women's order, right? And most of us have written about his women's order that says white women basically resist occupation have to be treated like prostitutes, right? And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what is he telling us? That prostitutes can be like, sexually assaulted without, without impunity. And so mostly I thought it, like before this project, I thought about that in relationship to elite white women. In this project, I thought about it in relationship to black women, that like, what does it mean that there are black women in New Orleans who are free, there's an active sex trade, and that laundresses are like, who are serving the Civil War, the Union Army, are treated and orders are put out as if they're prostitutes, right? So that they're these black women who are laboring, but they are also understood as prostitutes. And then this new project is like the prostitutes are mostly white in Kentucky. I got some black ones, and they talk about black soldiers, but these are mostly white women in like Kentucky and Arkansas and Indiana. Like, I don't know nothing about that place. I mean, I had to learn a lot. So I imagine that there is a way that it's a piece of a bigger puzzle, but I haven't quite figured out where it fits, and if I'm going to go down a hole with it, we'll see.
I was gonna say, I think to your question, the way you phrased it, like, I don't know if you've been down the rabbit hole, the language and how often it's Jane Landers, because I have a side laundress bit, but how often laundress and prostitute across the Americas. She's in Latin America, so there's a kind of slippage in category in terms of what work was being delivered and the fact that sort of sexual access to women, particularly in this occupation. So if essentially rape is a part of the work contract, across centuries, across regions, then it's a complicated. That's why the historians get to come to this party.
And then with prostitution like this, I imagine, like I can see the current day, issues where, women who work in the sex trade bring legal cases to, around sexual assault and rape, right? And then how for so long they were excluded from those, that they could never be unconsenting, that consent is an only issue when it comes. And so, there's this part of me that wants to make a connection between black enslaved women, but I don't know if I could just make like that. I feel like there's a history of sex trade that is very different from enslaved women's experience, right? Because there are some women who decided that they want to get paid for sex, right? But they also don't want to be raped, right? Whereas black women aren't making those, that's not a choice, right? In the sense that, so it's hard, but I feel like it's a historiography of the history of prostitution is something that I would have to really recognize.
Thank you